that they, I don't understand.
That appears to be just the image.
Yeah, but I don't want that big. It'll only show me the.
Oh, it's not. Are you not on the website? So you can go to each
Thought I was
chapter.
on the
But
Probably needs to be zoomed out.
It's not.
all I did was go to the email that you sent out.
It was working just a second.
Want me to look at the guy?
Hang on, no, this isn't his fault. That's it.
So was there an email sent over this?
Yeah, there was an email sent with this.
That probably was not included on the distribution.
I think you're on that list.
Yeah.
Because when you put your name down, we ask you to give us your email address. And so we
Yeah, I've been getting the emails from Shelley.
Or Gladys, whoever's, Shelley usually sends them out, that's right.
But let me ask the rest of it. Did you find a book? Because it's a chapter in one of his books, isn't it?
I think it's a gathering of his ideas, and it's the up-to-date one. It's from 2017. I only was looking for stuff that was really up-to-date.
It was written in 1973.
Well, parts of it may have been, but this
That's his first draft. And his several subsequent books were elaborating on this core.
Okay, so now this is the way this book is arranged. So you see that it starts out with the title, but now each chapter is underneath one of these little headings here. So when you just scroll down underneath this first, there's a little introductory blurb there, and you scroll down and there are a series of chapters in these little tabs.
I just don't think I ever saw that. Can I get the URL for
Now we're going to the first one, which is the introduction.
The next, it is all together, the nextsystem.org.
Yes, nextsystem.org, principles-introduction.
I read that. So I'm online.
You're on the right track. Okay, so now then, Dick, when you finish the introduction, then you scroll down underneath that, and the next chapters are all down there in the next section.
I just don't remember that.
You just have to scroll down.
I kept scrolling.
Yeah. So the first chapter there is introduction. The next one is America, and the third one is bureaucracy. So it goes through these different sets of principles that he has identified as being significant to what he's identifying as a pluralist commonwealth. So now, how many people have actually got to read something from Gar Apparowitz before? Anything then?
Gar
Apparowitz is the author.
The book I read was his first book on nuclear weapons.
And
it's a fine work of scholarship.
Yeah, exactly.
He does. He thinks very carefully and precisely, and he's really presented some things that I don't know whether you will agree with him or not, but I think it is definitely worth considering this, because this is a group that has, for a number of years now, been looking for the ways to move beyond climate change. How do we actually survive this? How do we rectify it? How do we make this better? And over time, we have come up against the same problem again and again and again. This is not an environmentalist problem. This is an economic problem. And the economic problem that we're struggling against, and it's easy to say it's the corporation's fault. But the truth of the matter is, the system is the problem. So now, what Apparowitz has really laid out here is a system that he can envision looking beyond capitalism to achieve the goals about the environment that we are struggling to rectify. The real problem here is that, one of the real problems that he's identified is the fact that, and in the scriptures, it says, without a vision the people perish. Isaiah says that, I believe. And this has been a major issue for so many of us because we see the problems that are in our faces. We see the things that are happening. We understand just how difficult it is for refugees having to flee their countries for violence and many times climate-related problems. So here we are trying to understand how to deal with these humongous problems, and it's even almost impossible to look beyond what is blocking us off and developing any kind of a vision that is not based on what we already know. And that's a very common human thing. This is what was familiar. We can see it operating. And in fact, a lot of the people that you and I are going to talk to on a daily basis, the assumptions that we're going into our lives with are so core based on the kind of an economic system that capitalism represents that we don't really see any other way to do it. And so many times over my activist lifetime, people have said to me, well, if you give up capitalism, what else is there? And of course, that's a huge thing. Changing the core values of an economic system are hugely difficult.
Can we ask questions
Sure.
as you go on?
Yeah.
You know, he does state, though, that since World War II is when we've really locked into place this. So that's such a brand new, that's only 100 years old, 75 years old at best. It's such a new vision that it seems to me that should we crash, which so many people are talking about economically, that why not move into some of these new visions that so many organizations, grassroots, and a fellow like Gar, who has thought so much about this. But I wonder how it will be done.
Yeah, how will it be done? And this is going to be the ongoing conversation.
It's a worldwide.
Yeah, because, okay, so we have this monolithic economic structure that sits on top of us every minute of our lives. And some people, a growing number of people, are saying, this is not working. This is not working for me. It's not working for you. It's not working for these people. Who is this working for? Oh, that guy works for him. But this is not. Yeah. And so figuring out, but you know, the way that the system, another one of those humongous problems is the fact that the equality, the economic balance is so off kilter right now. The amount of the resources that have been sucked up into the upper, what I'm understanding now is 8 people. 8 people who own as much as the bottom half of the global population. 8 people have as much wealth as they have. Stick it in their bank accounts. And we see exactly what kind of problem that presents when we are understanding that those people buy the government. Those people build the gold mines that destroy South American rivers. Those people decide that oil is going to keep flowing no matter what it does to the planet. And this little group of people, not just those 8 people, but you know, that small group of people who get to make all those decisions because they're the ones who have all the wealth. And the rest of us are just kind of trying to grapple with how do we survive whatever they want to happen. So what Alperovitz is trying to convey is, let's develop a different vision. So, as a visionary person himself, he really is presenting this incredible idea, but it's tossed out there and it's online. This is the primary place to find it, is online, in hopes that there will be a lot of people who are going to be looking at this, reading this, studying this, arguing about it, complaining about it. And you know, I have not ever seen exactly what kind of comments this is actually. I haven't looked at that, but we need to find out what kind of comments are coming up about this, because it really does need to be something that the human race is really kind of discussing, and what is the vision that the whole human race can embrace.
He talks about a lot of the things we discussed in the book form. When I did that presentation on the commons, and the commons listed all the different things that we have shared already. And it's not just grassroots, it's organizations that are growing. That's what he refers to. That's what he's working toward. So so much of what we've been researching in our group here, not just the science of climate change, but other methodologies and other visions, including the Native American indigenous visions, which have a different attitude toward property, which they don't have, the way that we have had property in this old vision.
Yeah, and the thing I'm hoping that we can talk about here is, there's this group of chapters. They kind of build on each other, and they have, and he will repeat some of his core pieces throughout these chapters. So he kind of is trying to make sure that they get repeated and looked through again, so that they get emphasized. But I don't think we have to talk about, but they're kind of standalone. Part of the reason he repeats things is that you can take any one of these chapters and just kind of dig into that, but not necessarily have to have started at the beginning and worked all the way through it. I think that's kind of an interesting thing. So,
we're still getting copies of these, you said?
well, we hope. We haven't,
I've asked for copies
Yeah.
for us to have,
yeah.
and they don't respond.
They haven't responded.
You're getting me so intrigued now that I think
Well, you can read it online.
I need to get
Yeah.
myself a copy.
Yeah.
Well, you can print this out and then have your own copy. These can be printed out from the computer to your printer.
So it's free, I guess?
It's free. Yeah. Yeah, they volunteered to send us the copies free too.
I asked for 12, because that's how many usually come to the book form.
How many pages is it?
I don't know.
I'm thinking I saw it was like less than 200 pages.
Yep.
But I can't remember for sure.
Pretty short.
Yeah. Now, the thing about the online version is it has a lot of links in these chapters, so, the different links on the online version.
Perfect reference.
Yeah.
And you have all the references at the end of each one of these links here.
Yeah. However, there are a couple of chapters here that I thought we could kind of talk about a little bit too. I wonder if we can get all through them. I'll look at them out.
I mean, look at those titles, they just sound like us.
They do. Okay, so the ones that I'd kind of like us to talk about today are, well, I kind of want to start with evolutionary reconstruction and displacement, because this touches on the issue you mentioned about here's the current economic system, and here we are over in the far left margin of it. How do we actually move from up here to that? And so this chapter is really kind of talking about
That is, did you say evolutionary or revolutionary?
evolutionary reconstruction and displacement. Yeah.
Yes, I see it.
Yeah. And so I kind of wanted to just hit on a couple of points about that, because
Is he summarized his vision at some point? Like page or two?
I believe he does, and it could be as part of this.
The introduction does it.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, this book is a summary.
It is.
He writes much longer books
Yeah, right.
later
So he points out that the way that governments and environmentalists have addressed climate change so far is by, they recognize that the corporations were a major cause of the problem. And they, so to address that, they tried to set up mechanisms to contain and regulate the corporations, which of course we now see that the corporations didn't like that at all. So this is a different way of addressing that problem, rather than trying to contain or regulate the corporations. They're not going to like this either. So now, a major issue for him is that he sees something that has, and this is why I loved this book instantly, same thing I love the Commons series that you did, is that what I see that capitalism has done to America in particular, but also communities all around the world, is it's focus on growth and profit really has made it see anything that stands in the way of growth and profit as the enemy. And here's a little town sitting on a resource that a corporation wants to develop. They have no compunction with shoving a little community out of the way and destroying that community and developing the resource. And in their minds, they have done a good thing. They have developed this natural resource that needed to be developed, with total disregard for the fact that that little community that used to be there, and now it's a coal mine pit, or now there's no water left, or now the water is polluted. But the community has totally been damaged and changed, and the relationships have been destroyed because the corporation chose to address it in that way. But what he's saying is, what I would say is, community is sacred. That's not what he says. What he's saying is that that community is an important part of the economics of a healthy planet. This is something that also comes out of the transition movement that says community is a significant, a primary element in the whole issue of what is a healthy community, which is healthy environmentally, politically, spiritually, food, all the elements that make up a good, solid community have to be connected by community. So, the thing about addressing the issue with containment and regulation is that it left the patterns of ownership intact, the capitalist patterns of ownership intact. So evolutionary reconstruction supplants corporate power instead of controlling it. Supplants. They're not going to like this. And the way they do that is they create new institutions that advance community-sustaining outcomes. And now, what he says is that pluralist commonwealth could also be called a community-sustaining economic system. The community-sustaining part is really the key issue. Some of the institutions that would need to be developed in order to enable this kind of a community-sustaining thing, I think he gave a nice list here. Cooperative businesses, employee-owned companies, community land trusts, nonprofit business models, community enterprise, community-based financial institutions, all these things that strengthen the local community and strengthen the local community decision makers. Because the situation we're in right now is that we have been informed by the Supreme Court of our land that the local community is always under the authority of the state government. The state government is always under the authority of the federal government. And that the power dynamic here is that if Fayetteville, Arkansas decides to protect its waters and protect the resources here, and other groups say they want to exploit those resources, we don't get to decide that. The power above us gets to decide that. Yeah.
It mentioned land trusts. Our land was threatened by the big guy on the block buying land behind us and wanting to use one of our old driveways to get to it, which has made it public access. So we went to a lawyer and said, why don't you try on a land trust? And so we went to, since we're in the actual watershed of the Buffalo River, we went to the Buffalo River Foundation, and just yesterday we signed the final papers after about 3 or 4 months, so that our land now will not be able to, it's in perpetuity protected by the Buffalo River Foundation for no extraction, no logging, no subdivision, and no roads.
Wow.
I mean, it depends on how the local court looks at that. But there's so many local people like us who are, moved in, who are not really locals, but have been here forever, who look at it as a very fair and just item.
Wow. Your neighbors are probably not going to like that either.
Oh, no. Most of our neighbors are like us. There are only very few local neighbors, and that was one of the guys who was the big guy on the block who thought for sure we'd give him permission. And
So-
it's on society.
So are you with the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust?
No, we're with the Buffalo River Foundation.
Foundation.
And we chose that one on purpose.
Oh, Trump may shut
And the guy
that
who
down.
represents it is an environmental lawyer. His name is Ross Nolan. What were you saying?
I said Trump may shut down the whole national park.
We'll see what happens.
We know it's not going to happen. but-
Well, there's still the possibility of our land being, we're right next to National Park, Upper Buffalo Wilderness Area, and the Wild and Scenic River. All of that is national,
Right.
federal lands. And so private land was taken over in the 70s, once the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act was legislated by Congress. And lots of people lost their hearts, literally,
Oh,
going
yeah.
up and down the Buffalo River at Boxley Valley, and we live on Cave Mountain outside of Boxley. So it can still happen, what's the word when it's taken over like that? It's not condemned.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain, right, yeah, eminent domain can still happen.
Well, a couple other things about evolutionary reconstruction and displacement. The displacement is a component. The system that would be rising up is a grassroots system. So what he's envisioning happen is, rather than taking the corporations to court, rather than trying to force a very conservative American government to regulate something that they're not going to regulate, he's laying all that aside and he's saying, build the infrastructure from the bottom up. So this is a grassroots vision that he has of building these small things in communities all across the country. And of course, this is going to work. I mean, this is something that needs to be happening in Fayetteville. The whole reason we have been thinking about the transition movement and other forms of local grassroots growing of enterprises. Because what he says is that each new community sustaining initiative, community sustaining institution, he thinks of them as institutions, will build power that leads to national reconstruction. Because in other parts of the book, you're going to see places where he talks about the impact of losing the unions, and the impact that's had on the Democratic Party and the progressive wing of politics. That the power that the unions had was that they had money and people that really could say no to the corporations. They really were in a position to limit the growth of the corporations. And that was a very important point during the time when the unions were really functioning at their best. Which, at no time did they were always like 30% of the workforce, actually. Not everybody was in the union. But at 30% was enough that they could stand up to the corporations. Now there's nobody left. The Democratic Party cannot stand up to the corporations, clearly. So in order to build this new power base, there has to be some economic grounding to it. We can't pretend that we can do this without being able to sustain ourselves. We have to be able to give our young people jobs. We have to be able to have housing and energy systems and food systems, all the things that the community needs to thrive. Those things have to be part of the plan, and it's not just whether the ideology we choose is an acceptable ideology. So he's saying, set the systems in place to support local decision makers and local communities in a way that they choose to be, that they choose to thrive. And that's going to be different all across the board. This is going to really enable communities to do well, and it's also going to force changes in the decision-making structure when the communities are independent and they are autonomous and developing their own economy. We don't have to pay attention to the government or the corporations or the military in the way we do now. Now, the corporations are not going to like this. I mean, this is and we can see this. Omni is getting ready to try to put solar panels on our roof, and we are in a hurry to do it because this fall the state of Arkansas has just passed a law that says Anybody who uses solar panels has to pay a fee into the big utility companies to make up for the revenue that the big utility companies are going to lose.
Oh, good. Oh, that's bad.
So if we can do that before November, we get grandfathered in. So we want to get those solar panels going before November so that we don't have to pay that fee for the first 10 years.
So what that law does is for anybody installing solar panels after that date, they will have to pay these fees. But for those who currently and already own the solar panel system, they don't have to pay that.
That's right.
Well, if I was to install my own solar panels, would I be charged that fee?
Well, not if you're installing before that.
Well, I mean afterwards.
Yeah, you would.
Even though maybe I build my own solar panels and
Or does this apply only to electricity, so that you have to get into their grid so they can control it? If you're just warming your own water tank, does that apply?
Maybe not.
I actually built my own solar panel one time.
So it's not tied to the grid, you're saying?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, yeah.
A comment. The last time the United States was so fully progressive was under FDR, and that was only, I think, that was only because of the Depression. And so it may be that we should welcome the falling apart of the system like a lot of people do. I'm not sure where I stand on that because there's an awful lot of pain involved in it. But that's the only time that we have really, really pushed forward with progressive ideas. And so those have been being taken down. Because I think part of it's when we saw in the 60s the flower kids, you know, who went too far in so many different ways. I think that's when the kickback got started. And so more of further right started coming back in to see how far progressive ideas have come. So I'm wondering, Dora has really great ideas, I think, but